There's no reason for me to compare the two, but he reminds me a lot of Jax from Once Upon a Broken Heart. After that, okay. This, Hi everyone, welcome to the video. My name is Carrie. Thank you for being here. I'm coming to you on a rainy spring day here in Seoul. Now that we are truly in the middle of spring, I thought it would be a good time to go over the first quarter of the year, and I'm actually going to cheat and I'm going to put the books that I've already kind of read in April because I read a lot of fantasy already. I'm going to stick those in. So it's going to be like a quarter and a little bit more of 2026. Ranking my fantasy books. On Instagram, I've been seeing the trend go around of like, these are the books that exceeded my expectations, met my expectations, etc. So while I am going to post a shorter version of that on my Instagram, I thought I would do a longer one here because I always need to explain myself. So we've got 16 books to go, 15 and then one novella, but 16 stories to talk about. So let me pull up. Let me get here. I've forgotten how to do tier ranking. Hold on a second. And for people who ask how I do this, I literally just Google like tier ranking website and it comes up tiermaker.com and then I just screen record. I don't know. So anyway, here are our categories. Starting at the top, we have exceeded my expectations. And I will say like this entire video is based off of expectations. So some of these books like kind of shot themselves in the foot because I had really high expectations for them. Other ones I had really low expectations. So everyone, we're not competing on an even playing field, okay? Once again, these are just my opinions. Classic booktube disclaimer, okay? So we have exceeded my expectations. After that, we have met my expectations. Great, fine. And then the next two sound the same, but they're subtly different. And so the next category under met expectations is lacking something, but met expectations. Okay. The one below it is redeeming qualities, but a letdown. I just feel like there's such a big gap between met my expectations and let me down. So there are ones that it was like, it's okay, but it wasn't great. And then it wasn't great, but it had some good points. Do you see the difference? Is that just, anyway, I trust that you get it. And if you don't, rock on. You can count them as the same. And then final, last here, letdown. So shall we just begin? Let me remember how to do this. Let me screen record. I've been thinking about this a lot just as I'm getting this set up. Thinking about this a lot recently that fantasy books just have not been hitting recently. I got a comment, just one comment, but a comment nonetheless, asking like, could I read more fantasies because that's what they follow me for during my like monthly wrap-ups. And it's true, I have been reading less fantasy, but I feel like that's just because not interested in what's coming out, or I am and it's not hitting, and then I get put into a reading slump. I'm still reading a lot of fantasy and sci-fi, but just like that used to be the only genre that I really read. And yeah, I'm hoping that like later this year, we have the hard hitters coming back. We've got Cassandra Clare. We've got Leigh Bardugo. Holly Black, I think she's releasing like an illustrated book or like short stories or something like that. I don't know. Just things are not hitting. The recent releases are not hitting as the releases of like 2016 to maybe let's say 2022. So yeah, I'm just kind of struggling. I'm hoping that this year is turning around. I've had some good ones. I've had some things that have hit luckily this year, but just, I don't know if it's like, I think part of it is that I have personally changed as a reader, or maybe like my standards have gotten higher. Just because I've read so much. I think when you're new to a genre, everything feels great, but then once you've like tasted a lot, you have higher standards. So I think partially it's that, but also like, I just think that we're seeing issues with editors. We're seeing publishers pushing like trope first rather than, trying an original story with incredible writing. There's a lot of different players on the board. But yeah, I hope for all of our sakes that we start getting some really good fantasy. I'm also like self-sabotaging because I know that there are some books that will hit so hard. Like, is she within reach? No, she's not. Of course not. Robin Hobb. I know that series, that like 12, 13 book world will take over my life. And I just can't, I'm not ready. Because when I can only read books for the first time once, I get kind of freaked out. And so I have Assassin's Apprentice. I have the first book in my possession. I don't know where it is, but it's somewhere. And I just keep putting it off. So there is still plenty of amazing fantasy for me to read. Just the recent releases have been kind of, So that being said, let me start with the novella. This is one that I read really recently and talked about. It is Princess Floralinda and the 40 Flight Tower. This is 100-something pages. It is by Tamsyn Muir, the author of Gideon the Ninth. And this was recommended to me when I said I was in a reading slump and I was about to get on an airplane. So that meant that my reading slump was also competing with my anxiety. And great recommendation. I read it in the terminal. I finished it right before I got on my airplane and I had a really good time. So I'm going to put this in met expectations. This is a bit of a twist on the Princess in the Tower motif, where we have a princess who gets locked in a tower by a witch and is promised, like, oh, don't worry, honey, the princes will be coming. They just got to fight through 40 different flights of various mythical creatures. No big deal. Like, you got your classic dragon, but we've got some other fun stuff going on. Don't worry about it. You'll be free soon. Spoiler, she isn't free soon. And she has to take matters into her own hands. And I think it takes some turns that I'm glad that it did. I think it got a little boring, or like, not boring, but like repetitive in the middle. But overall, just like solid, did the job. And if you're in a little bit of a reading slump and you need some fantasy, but something that's just a little bit different, Princess Floralinda hit for me. So thank you, Tamsyn, as usual. Now let me show you an example of redeeming qualities, but a letdown. And this is also another recent read, and I have an entire video about it if you want to watch. That is Daggermouth. So Daggermouth's redeeming quality is that it was a page turner. I read it quickly. I was enthused. I was engaged. Everything else, though, was a mess. Like, this is a dystopian romance. And okay, so it's not technically fantasy. I'm sorry that I put it in here. I'm realizing that now. Just pretend you didn't see that. Okay, my bad. Daggermouth is not a fantasy, but this was a dystopian romance about a girl who is sent to assassinate the heir to the presidency/dictatorship. She messes it up, and something about the way that she messes it up leads to her being forced to marry said person that she was trying to assassinate. And shit hits the fan, as you can imagine. Everything about this was nonsensical. Just the political structure, the dystopia of it all, was really not well thought out. There were like really strange details. Like, everybody in the elite have to wear masks, but also it's a surveillance state. So like, why are you bothering to surveil people so closely when you can't even tell who they are? Why would they wear masks? Like, I could understand, like, maybe just the dictator wearing a mask, or like just the royal family, but like, there were just too many details in there that it was very strange. It is going to be a series. It did have this kind of cliffhanger ending twist to it that also didn't make sense, like didn't really have a big payoff. But there was some banter that was good. It was quick and easy to read. And because there were so many POVs, it was like the action kind of never stopped. So very readable, very illogical. So that is Daggermouth, the not fantasy book. My bad. And a controversial opinion to show you the lacking something but met expectations. The Poet Empress. This is what I mean when I said in the beginning that we're not playing on an even playing field here, because all of these books I had different levels of expectations for. The Poet Empress, based on the reviews by my friends and people I trust, I really thought it was going to be my favorite book of the year. I thought it was going to be 6 stars. I thought it was going to be a life-changing experience. Unfortunately, it wasn't. I think it's a great debut, but it was lacking in sort of all all of the places where I wanted it to shine. So The Poet Empress is, like I said, a debut fantasy. This is set in a kind of fantasy China where most of the kingdom is suffering from a famine. And in order to help her family, her village, and specifically her younger brother, our main girl decides to try to become a concubine, basically, in the royal palace and serve under this horribly violent heir to the throne. This particular prince who is known for killing people for like laughing too long at one of his jokes or not long enough. Like really a dangerous individual. But she's like, even if I die, at least maybe my family will get some money. I will have power in that at least I'm at court and maybe I can kind of speak to some people about getting goods and food and supplies to my village, things like that. She's willing to risk it all. But once she gets to court and learns more about the magic from her kingdom, she finds out that there is a particular curse or spell where she could kill this emperor to be. And the magic system revolves around poetry. Okay. So unfortunately for me with this, I thought it was like solid. It was lacking to me in poetry. It was lacking to me really in magic. There was such a emphasis on the emperor, like the villain of the story, that we actually didn't really get to know that much about our main character. And I felt like she made a lot of she was a very imperfect person as well. And I wish that we had gotten more time to like dive into her psyche because she made some choices that I was like, girl, are you okay? I thought the setting was really beautiful. I thought that there were really strong descriptions of like these really horrific things that happened to all of these characters. Like I said, the writing was really strong. I felt like I just didn't have the strongest emotional connection to it just because of certain choices that were made, unfortunately. And kind of at the center of this story is love and how can you grow to love something so evil. And I'm not like asking for romance, but I also like wasn't sure that there was love shown right until the very end. And so it kind of made the payoff not amazing. So yeah, I think that it was really solid, but it was lacking in a lot, unfortunately. So that is my unpopular opinion of The Poet Empress. And I really think that it let me down more just because I was holding it to such a high standard before I even went in. But very excited for whatever this author comes up with next, because I thought the ending, I didn't really like. The pre-ending, I thought was fabulous. I thought was great. That is The Poet Empress. Next up, we have The Swan's Daughter. I think that I had reasonable expectations for this book because this author has written one of my favorite fantasy series, Gilded Wolves, and I really loved The Last Tale of the Flower Bride. So I think I knew what I was getting into and she delivered what I wanted. So I'm going to put this in, met expectations. Also slightly imperfect, but like delivered for what I wanted from the book, it gave to me. So The Swan's Daughter is this kind of Grimm's Brother-esque fairy tale. It's very dark, about a veritas swan, which is a mythical creature that can be either a beautiful woman or a swan. And we start the story with the mother of our main character being tricked into falling in love with this kind of evil magician wizard character. And he kind of just traps her in this marriage for hundreds of years. And she eventually has, I think it's 7 daughters. And he uses their powers as veritas swans to set them in really advantageous marriages to princes and emperors and kings so that he can really manipulate the powers of the world, basically. But we follow our youngest daughter, who is not married off. Her father has a different plan for her and how she is going to help him with his quest for power. And when she figures this out, she runs away to the one place her father can't go, which is the royal palace in the kingdom in which they live. And what's going on at the palace when she arrives? Oh, just a competition to become the bride of the heir to the throne. Basically, the selection is going on. But it's not just any normal, like, bachelor competition. There's some kind of curse with the royal family where the brides always try to kill their groom. So the prince is basically trying to pick the bride that is least likely to try to kill him. But luckily for him, our main character is able to compel people to speak the truth. So in exchange for protection, staying in the palace, she is going to help him maneuver through this bachelorette situation. Hopefully unharmed. And what I wanted from this book and what I got from this book was really beautiful flowery writing. If you read The Last Tale of the Flower Bride, it was just like delicious, really descriptive writing. Some people thought it was a little over flowery. I totally get that. But for me, I love that type of writing in the correct setting. And this was the correct setting for it. So I really enjoyed just the experience of reading her writing. I think I mentioned it once before, there's like specifically a scene where she's just talking about where you can see the color black, and it ends up being just like a list of all of these like things that you don't even think about as being like lacking of color. So it was just a really beautiful story to read. But in terms of the characters, in terms of the love interest, I felt nothing. I think my favorite character was the prince's sister, who is like a little insane in the best way. So I didn't actually like, I guess, the story in general. Like I wasn't really impacted by the characters, but I just really loved the writing style. So it met my expectations simply because I just wanted to read really beautiful descriptive writing, and that's what she gave me. So different strokes, different folks. I don't know if it'll hit for everybody, but if you liked The Last Flower Bride, try The Swan's Daughter. After that, okay. Speaking of writing style, let me give us right up here, exceeded my expectations. Alphabet of Thorns by Patricia McKillip. This is an author that was recommended to me a lot because of how much I love Daughter of the Forest, which I think is just an extremely nostalgic feeling, like this kind of timeless writing style when it comes to a fantasy. And this one was exactly what I wanted. So Alphabet of Thorn is a standalone young adult fantasy. It is about, oh God, how do I describe this? We have so many different characters. Mainly we are following an orphaned girl who was raised by the Royal Library, and she is a translator. She has this wonderful skill of being able to decode these mysterious alphabets, and it's very whimsical in that, like, the first book that she is given to translate, it is an alphabet of fish. So when you're describing how the letters look, it's fish. I don't know how to describe it. But it was like that, just very whimsical, very fantastical. But there's also a romance. There's also political intrigue. When our main character is given one particular book in a language with an alphabet of thorns, as she starts to translate it and we're taken on the story that she is reading as she's translating, it's like a story within a story. There's a floating magical school. There's a tiny bit of romance that I thought was like just the right amount. I went in with kind of no expectations, and this was really wonderful. I feel like this is a story that I could reread and like rediscover little bits that I love. I had a really great time with it, and I already have, what is it? The Beasts of Eld, whatever her like most recommended book is, it is on its way to me as we speak. So I'm really excited. This one exceeded my expectations, and I'm really excited to have discovered a new to me author that I can continue reading. That is Alphabet of Thorn. Just to even out the rankings, let's throw a letdown in there. I'm going to put Agnes Auberts' Mystical Cat Shelter. The more that I think about it, the more that I didn't like it. So this is by the same author as Emily Wilde's Encyclopedia of Fairies. I really liked that. I actually haven't read the third one yet. I don't know why I'm not rushing to it, but I really enjoyed the first two books of Emily Wilde. And when I heard like fantasy 1920s Montreal cat shelter, I was very excited. And unfortunately, it just really didn't do anything for me. It had a lot of parallels to Howl's Moving Castle that I felt Howl and every other person on earth who has done that trope now did it better. I didn't like our romantic lead. I didn't like our main character. The actual like fantasy element, like what was the crisis, what was the goal, I forgot about it a lot of the time. It just kind of was very boring. And I get that this was supposed to be kind of like a cozy fantasy, but it wasn't. It was cozy just because it was like slow moving and there were cats. But unfortunately for me, it just like kind of did nothing for me. However, ironically, even though this was a letdown, a week or two later, I am now a cat mom. I am fostering a cat from a cat shelter. So it must have had some kind of impact on me. I don't know. But yeah, that one just really, I had medium high expectations for it, and it just kind of gave me nothing, sadly. So that is Agnes Auberts' Mystical Cat Shelter. One book that I enjoyed, but I don't think many people know about, is House of Splinters. I'm going to put it in Met. This is by the author of Silent Companions, and I talked about Silent Companions years ago when I read it. It's one of those books, one of the few books that actually gave me a jump scare while I was reading it. Like, I was actually frightened. And what I did not know, I sort of just bought this book. I was in Edinburgh and the book is beautiful. So I kind of just saw that it was a beautiful book and it was by an author I liked. So I didn't actually look into what it was about because I try to go into books knowing as little as possible. I was unaware that it's actually a prequel to Silent Companions. So as I was reading it, I was having deja vu. I was kind of like, oh, that's funny. The name of the house is the same. Or like, oh, that's funny. The name of this character is the same. Yeah. So I will say House of Splinters was very similar to Silent Companions. Sometimes a prequel can, I don't know, it just didn't feel too different from what I remember of Silent Companions, having only read it once, I think a few years ago. That being said, it still had jump scares, and I think I actually liked this one a little bit more. I felt like the stakes were a little bit higher. It's very gothic. We're dealing with a woman who is moving with her husband and son to this like desolate countryside manor because he's a lord or a duke or something. And his father passed away, so now the like countryside royal seat is his problem. So they have to move to this town. Immediately creepy vibes. We do not like the house. There's just like creepy things in it. The Silent Companions immediately make an appearance, which are like wooden cutouts of people. It sounds like it wouldn't be scary. It's scary, okay? The little boy is immediately drawn to them and talks about them as if they were real. The wife feels like she's going crazy. The wife is also pregnant. The wife feels like she's going crazy. No one will listen to her. It's like just a classic gothic ghost story. And I think that she does it so well. So I knock it points only because it's very similar to Silent Companions. I don't think she did anything like really revolutionary with the prequel, but still hit, still delivered. And I think I kind of liked the ending of this one more. I think that this one was slightly better than Silent Companions. Me having not read Silent Companions in years. That is House of Splinters. That one I do not regret purchasing. And that was one that I had to actually have shipped to me from Edinburgh. So shout out to Type Wronger, not typewriter, Type Wronger Books in Scotland. Thank you very much. It made it safely here to Korea. Let's talk about a kind of boring one. The Once and Future Queen. Redeeming qualities, but a letdown. This one, I love a time travel story. I love something that pulls on the King Arthur myth. Unfortunately, this one just wasn't my style at all. We're dealing with a girl who's living in present day England, and she lives a very solitary life. She's lived in the same town her entire life, but she just hasn't really connected with anyone. She hasn't really made friends. She did have one really strong connection, but unfortunately that person passed away recently, so she's just feeling really lost. Her world gets turned upside down when a certain Merlin shows up to tell her that maybe she is not of this timeline and she needs to return to her true time zone and save the world. Save the world. With her husband, King Arthur, her husband who she doesn't remember. She has no memory of her past life, okay? So then we are immediately thrown into the world of King Arthur. All of our cast of characters is there. Unfortunately, I just didn't like it. There were so many like rules of time travel that I felt were broken, and I just wasn't enthusiastic about where any of the plot was going, unfortunately. I was just rather bored. The redeeming qualities was the idea I think the concept was interesting and it wasn't bad. It was just for me really bland. I did like her relationship with some of the characters, but it was just, it had redeeming qualities, but it was a letdown, as the tier ranking category says. So that was the Once and Future Queen. Also, it's going to be a series. And glad if you liked it, but unfortunately for me, something that was for me though, Blood on Her Tongue. I'm gonna put it, you know what? Fuck it. I'm gonna put it in Met, but very close to lacking something. Blood on Her Tongue is a vampire story that I liked it. I don't know what to say. I went in kind of with no expectation, so I think that it had that in its favor. But we're following twin sisters. One is married, lives off in the countryside, and hasn't been well, has been sending letters to her sister that are a little alarming, just isn't doing so hot. And when her twin sister then gets a letter from her sister's husband saying, hey girl, you might want to come to our house to say your goodbyes. Your sister's really sick. She goes to the countryside. This house is near a bog. Her sister has also been obsessed with this bog woman. They found a woman, a dead body in the bog. And that was kind of the beginning of her crazy letters. And we follow our sisters as one gets sicker and sicker, and the other is wondering, what the hell is wrong with my sister? There were quite a few bits of it that were really predictable, but there were also some parts that I wasn't sure where it was going to go. So once I kind of just let go of the reins and I was like, Jesus, take the wheel, I will just be on this ride. I had a good time with it. It was bloody, it was gross. There were some really scary moments, and I ended up liking where it ended. At first, where I saw it was going, I was like, no, don't go down that road. And then now that I think about it, I think that if you have a sister, this was a really interesting piece on sisterly love and what happens if your sister maybe turns into a vampire. Blood on Her Tongue, had a good time. I think that, like I said, there was definitely a lull, the second third of the book. I just wanted to kind of get to the ending. I kind of wanted to see where it was going. I thought that it kind of meandered, but overall met my expectations. So if you're looking for a little vampire action, a little bog woman, and a lot of the story is told through letters, there you have it. Blood on Her Tongue. Speaking of vampires, I cannot believe this book exists. Big ol' letdown. Let's talk about We Who Will Die. This is vampires, but also gladiators and ancient Rome. No, none of this hit, actually. This was supposed to be a god tier romantasy. I just really wonder, I don't want to stir up anything, but when book influencers get their hands on arcs and they sing to the high heavens about these arcs, and then the rest of us get our hands on the book and we're like, what is this junk? I just wonder what's up with that? I don't know. There were just so many people saying so many great things about this book that I was like, this sounds ridiculous. Vampire gladiators, enemies to lovers, romantasy, what? That I was like, maybe this will hit. Wouldn't that be crazy if it did? And it didn't. We Who Will Die is about a world where, yeah, there are vampires, but there's also magical people and there's normal people. And our main character's little brother is really sick, and in order to get the really expensive medicine and also to move their family to a warmer climate that would be better for his illness, instead of marrying the dude who is hey girl, we're really good friends, I think we could get married and I could support your family and we can move and do everything that you want to save your brother's life, instead of doing that, she makes a deal with a potentially evil vampire and enters this deadly gladiator contest in which she needs to win that, and then she needs to become a royal guard so that then she can kill the emperor. And if she accomplishes that, then she'll get the money to get her brother's. It was really dumb. I'm gonna say, like, I couldn't picture anything that was happening. There was absolutely like this kind of ACOTAR, resand kind of character development thing that was stirring, and it was very obvious from like the get-go. The fighting, like the actual gladiator-ness of it, was quite boring, and like I just couldn't understand the world. Like, what were we doing? We were trying to overthrow an emperor, but for what? Like, who? You have magic, but the I was lost, and there was no, like, the banter wasn't good. There was no redeeming quality to it whatsoever. And it's going to be a series. I don't understand. That was a book that literally there was not a single thing that I was okay with. We Who Will Die, it also takes place like mostly in tunnels or like underground. So I just felt very claustrophobic the whole time. The only scene that the only place that I can picture clearly in this book is the cafeteria, or like wherever they were eating. That was the only scene where I could like see things laid out. Anything else, it was like, oh, she's jumping through walls. There's a tunnel inside the tunnel. I did not have a good time. That is We Who Will Die. No, thank you. Oh my gosh, where do we go from here? Where do we go from here? I will talk about the most recent book that I read. I finished it literally yesterday. The Lies That Summon the Night. Let down. So, I've read work by this author before. Wait, let me look her up. What have I read? Hold on. Oh, okay. So she has written a couple like romantasy books that were just like a fun time. The Curse of the Wolf King, The Heart of the Raven Prince, those ones, they were like fine. I actually think I think it was the Wolf King. I was like absolutely fine with that. So I decided to pick this one up. Unfortunately, it just was lacking everything, and the next book we talk about, it had an effect on how weak this particular world building felt. The Lies That Summon the Night takes place in a kingdom in which lying is a sin, and lies can be art, can be storytelling, like any kind of fiction, any kind of creation is a lie and a sin, and those sins manifest in something called shades, and these are like creepy ghost-like things that can attack you. And so reasonably so, the world is obsessed with sins. But the elite are considered sinless because they have been like absolved of their sins, and they can help protect certain cities. They can use their magic. They have like some kind of solar magic to send light to take away the shades and protect people within their cities. So our main girl is a sinner. She is an outlaw. She has told way too many tales, and she has kind of been bought into servitude where she performs her art. She's like a seamstress. She does like fabric art, basically. She performs her storytelling for an audience and all of this stuff. When one day at work, she gets taken away to work with basically like a bounty hunter, like a guy who hunts shades, and he needs somebody to like do art and storytelling to bring the shades closer to him so he can capture them, you know? So technically they're enemies. It's hard to explain. So in the beginning, I was interested. And then it's very like forward about it being a romantasy, and it very much was like every scene was written just so that we could get to our steamy scenes, not so that the story could move forward. It's a lot of like a kind of quest where you just have a group of people traveling from like city to city to city to do like, oh, there's a problem here that we got to solve. Oh, there's a problem here that we got to solve. Oh, there's a problem. So it just felt like we were just like in a wagon going around the kingdom, and there's a lot of sexual tension. Like that's pretty much what the book is. The banter was kind of funny, especially because he has like some demon-esque characters that speak his like inner thoughts out loud, which is kind of funny. But just overall, the world building of it all was really lacking. And so when there were like twists or reveals or whatever, I was sort of like my reaction was either duh, or that doesn't really make sense because I don't really understand how the world works, you know? It tried, but it was it was just extremely unremarkable, unfortunately. Which leads me to the next book, which where am I going to put you? I'm going to put this in Met. I might change this, okay? But I'm going to put a stage set for villains in Lacking Something, but Met. Because it really was just missing something, but I can't really put my finger on it. And this is quite interesting because it has the same concept, sort of, as The Lies That Summon the Night, in which we are in a kingdom where lies are forbidden. They are sinful, and lies in this case would be storytelling, but in the form of theater. So they basically have these immortal beings that are called players, and there's a traveling theater, a traveling playhouse, and they put on performances all over the kingdoms. And for reasons that are not super specified, this is illegal in half of the kingdom and like punishable by death. Like they I don't know, it's just, there were so many parts of this that weren't clearly explained. However, we're following our main character who, when she was young, she had a run-in with one of these immortal players. And ever since then, she's been really sick. Like, she thinks that the player must have poisoned her in some way. And because of that, when the playhouse appears and they have an open casting call to join the playhouse, she goes in trying not to audition, but simply to snoop around the theater so that she could potentially find an antidote to whatever the hell is wrong with her. Yeah, she doesn't make it out of the playhouse. She's forced to audition and go through these, like, to learn the magic of the theater. And of course, the world, as we know it, unravels from there. So world building wise, I thought the concept was really interesting, making magic related to theater. However, the magic was never really used / shown. There were very specific pieces of magic that were used, but all the other things that we were told never really come into play, and they were a little confusing. We never actually see them really performing. We're just kind of told that they perform. I don't really know, again, like, why is it illegal? What harm is it doing? What good is it bringing? But what really matters here is the banter between our two main characters is really good. Specifically our main male character, Jude. I feel like there's no reason for me to compare the two, but he reminds me a lot of Jax from Once Upon a Broken Heart. Go with me here, okay? If you get it, you get it. If you don't, you don't. Like, I can't put a finger on why he reminds me of Jax, but he does. So there you have it. It also, right when I was kind of like, okay, this is getting a little bit boring, because I will say nothing really happens in this one either. It's a lot of like moving around. That's it, moving around. So right when it was about to get a little bit boring, we learn a key piece of information that blows everything up. And even though usually that's actually something I don't like in books, I liked it in this one. I thought it was handled in a really interesting way. And I recently saw a reel of a podcast that the author was on, because this is also a debut. And the author was straight up like, yeah, I came up with the twist. And then I wrote the book. And sometimes when authors do that, it's really obvious and really bad. But in this case, I thought that she did a really good job of building it out. So even though there were a lot of things that I was like, this doesn't make sense, this wasn't explained, very vibey, unfortunately, for some reason I had a good time with it. I also saw somebody compare this to the Night Circus, and I somewhat agree. I don't think that fans of the Night Circus all would love this one. It felt very young adult, very quick to read, very page turny. But there was kind of an element of the Night Circus there, like how they're kind of having to duel, but the duel is theater based. I also read this like 2 or 3 days ago. So I'm kind of still in a honeymoon period. There was something lacking to it. It is not a perfect book, but was I hooked on it? Did I really enjoy, especially the character of Jude? Yes and yes. So met my expectations, lacking something, but honestly, I had a good time. And so that kind of made The Lies That Summon the Night, because they had a very similar kind of sin system, I guess. It kind of made Lies Some of the Night even weaker in comparison. So that is a stage set for villains. Next up, after that, let's do an arcane inheritance. That's going in redeeming qualities, but a letdown. Unfortunately, this was compared to Get Out meets Babel. Not quite. So an arcane inheritance is a dark academia fantasy novel in which our main character has been given a full ride scholarship to this university. She is, I believe, studying to be a lawyer. There's this really annoying rich boy in her political science classes. So there we go. We've got our enemy. And school is going okay, but she starts to have these really strange visions or like moments where she blacks out or really strange dreams. And as we slowly unravel what exactly is happening to her and she gets invited into a secret society, things get darker and darker and more confusing. There are ghosts and exorcisms and creepy scenes. There's like one specific scene that stays in my mind of like she's looking in the mirror and she realizes she has a tattoo on her back. And something about that was like so vivid for me. So there are really good scenes. I thought that the banter between our two main characters was really good. However, the banter was the strongest part. We were given a lot of time to spend with our two main characters, but then any time in between when there's supposed to be action happening, like for example, an exorcism, those happen way too quickly. And so it felt very start-stop. I did think that where it ended, like the whole reason I didn't DNF it is that I was intrigued by what the hell is going on in here. So I stayed with it. And I will say that where it ended up going was quite interesting. I didn't really love the ending, but it was different. It wasn't what I expected. The like dark academia of it all was kind of like, oh, they had dinner with their professor and they spent a lot of time in the library, and our main male character wore a lot of like sweater vests. He was kind of preppy, if I'm remembering correctly. So yeah, it was unfortunate because this was one that I went in with high expectations, but a letdown it was. That was an arcane inheritance. 3 left. I'm going to go with one that was highly anticipated, one that has been buzzed about, especially because it came out so recently. Let's talk about The Red Winter. I technically read this in April. You are getting a sneak peek of my thoughts. The Red Winter. I heard such great things. I had a really great time until 50%. So I'm going to put this, I know, crazy, into lacking something, but still met my expectations. This started out so strong. We are dealing with a man who in like the mid 1700s dealt with a particular beast that was haunting this one town in France. It was kind of like this werewolf-esque character. Fast forward 20 years later, somebody tracks him down and is like, hey buddy, turns out we didn't defeat the beast like we thought we would. Your contract still stands. You need to come back and help me fight this. So the way that we're told the story is in our like present day, he is traveling back to that town and he is telling the story that happened 20 years ago, 10 years ago, 20. Anyway, he's telling the story of what happened to his travel companion. And so that's how we jump in between storylines, is like the guy will interrupt to be like, well, hold up. I didn't hear that part of the story when like my father told it to me. So I thought it was a really cool way of telling the story. We also flash all the way back to the 1400s. Joan of Arc is there. We're not even going to go into that part. What's really exciting about our main character is that he has a little demon or something sharing his noggin. So he often has conversations with this like other consciousness that is living in his brain. So it had so many elements of things that I like, but unfortunately, once we got to the 50% mark, I was not interested. Also, our like main love interest is just kind of like an insufferable dude. Like I really didn't care about any character except for our main character. So it was one of those things where I loved the writing style, but the story just was not. The ending was just not it, especially because the ending happened really quickly. The plot was a little bit meandery and then everything wraps up in like the last 10%, but also wraps up, did it? You know, it's one of those kind of endings. I believe this is also going to be a series, which is odd. I just think it was like a punch in the gut because it was so good, the first 50%. And the last 50%, I could not have cared, did not care. Especially the flashbacks. Like, I was really interested in the flashbacks of like the 1400s in the first 50%. And then once it continued, I was like, what is going on? I really didn't care for or understand the story. There's like a succubus character. What was up with her? It also made me kind of low-key hate our main character. So it was, yeah, the last half of this book really fell flat for me, unfortunately, which is wild because of how good the first 50% was. So let me know your thoughts, because this was, a lot of people really loved it, but I did get a few comments when I mentioned on Instagram that I was reading it. Did get a few comments of people saying like, I didn't like it. Okay? I didn't hate it, but I was just kind of like, what? The last half of it was just like, what is this? What a bummer. So honestly, it's teetering towards redeeming qualities, but a letdown just because of how much I hated the last 50% and how much I hated that damn love interest. He was cute. That was it. Handsome boy. Nothing going on. Nothing going on there. Okay. That is the Red Winter. And then Red City. Red City is also going in lacking something but met expectations. This is kind of like a Romeo and Juliet modern gang warfare fantasy. We're following two different characters. We have two different POVs. Our characters met when they were in elementary school, I believe. They also live in a fantastical Los Angeles, which was like immediately knocked a point off right there. And they both enter into opposing gangs for various reasons. One is taken directly from his home because of some skills that he has, and is brought to a gang. And then one enters kind of willingly in order to like get help and support her mom, if I'm remembering correctly. Anyway, neither of them talk to each other about the fact that they're in opposing gangs. But once they reach adulthood and their opposing gangs start a gang war, some stuff happens, okay? I really wanted to like this. I had just so many issues with it. Like, a huge chunk of the beginning of the book is we are meeting our characters as children, and then we immediately have a time jump to adulthood, and it becomes really like adult and sexual. And I'm like, 2 pages ago you were 7, so I don't like this. They're also like, in terms of the actual romance, I think that the reader was supposed to do a lot of heavy lifting in terms of making up the relationship. We didn't see a lot of their connection. Like, why did they still like each other when they haven't spoken and they were in elementary school? I wanted the magic to be explained better. I wanted the relationship to make sense. I will give it credit though, like in terms of being a book about people in gangs, gang violence was violent, and they did horrible, horrible things to each other. People die. So it wasn't like kind of a fluffy book like Silver Cloak in terms of like being in a gang. But I don't think I'm going to continue. Well, actually, no. Didn't I tell myself I was going to continue it? I feel like the second book could be good. Like, this was doing a lot of scene setting and like character introduction and world building. So I feel like maybe the second, yeah, I rescind that. I will read the second book, but I just didn't like this one. I didn't like the first book. Red City, let me know your thoughts. I really haven't I heard a lot of people before it came out talking about how good it was, and then once it came out, I kind of haven't heard anything about it. So let me know your thoughts. Just kind of a letdown. I didn't like any of our characters, was lacking magic, was lacking romance. Meh, you know, just meh. That is Red City. And last but not least, one of the first books I read of the entire year, you know it, A River Enchanted. Going in, exceeded expectations, which is so funny because I DNF'd this book years ago. Like, when it came out, I think I got it from Book of the Month maybe. And I read the first chapter and I was just like, not for me. And then I picked it back up in January of 2026 and adored it, ate it up. This is a duology, A River Enchanted and A Fire Endless, talking about them as if it were one book, okay? I really liked this. I did like the first one more than the second one, but still a really great duology. And this coincidentally has a very similar writing style to Patricia McKillip, who is also in this tier, and Juliette Marillier, I heard is now how she pronounces it, of Daughter of the Forest. And So I think maybe that's just the type of writing that I'm really craving recently. A River Enchanted is about a magical island. Our main character is from there, but he has moved to the mainland to study music. He is delivered a message asking him to come home. And when he makes the journey there, something is not quite right. Who invited him home? A lot of little girls are going missing. He's also reconnecting with his childhood rival that maybe now that they're adults, they can fall in love like they're supposed to. I don't know. I just really, really enjoyed this. There are kind of gods or fae or like immortal beings. There's this mystery of the missing girls. Each character was dealing with something completely separate. Like there were just so many storylines that connected really beautifully, I thought. I liked all of the characters. They were all pretty imperfect and realistic. Yeah, I just really had a good time with A River Enchanted. So, and actually I heard from quite a few people when I did my wrap up in January, quite a few people said that they had the same experience where they DNF'd it a while back and now returning to it, they love it. So, PSA, if you have put down A River Enchanted, give it another try. Give it another try. Our main character is a bard. He's a musician. And our main female character is like a badass Empress or queen in training kind of thing. I don't know, I just really liked the dynamics and all of the love, whether it was familial, whether it was kind of an already established marriage, whether it's someone falling in love for the first time. I loved every bit of it. Like I said, the first one, stronger than the second one, but still fine. Exceeded my expectations. So that is A River Enchanted. And that is my ranking. I'm happy that so many hit. I feel like if you asked me about last year, I would have put a lot more books in the letdown tier. But luckily, I feel like the ones that are in the bottom 2 tiers are ones that I kind of wasn't sure about to begin with. The ones that I was really looking forward to, like the ones that are by authors that I love, other than the Emily Wilde ones, like The Swan's Daughter or Floralinda or Alphabet of Thorn, all of those, they still hit. So that was great. I wasn't like betrayed by a beloved author, which is nice. So that is my tier ranking. I have a bunch of fantasies in from the library right now, very excited about. And like I said, looking forward to, I think it's autumn. I think it's like September that everyone, like Lee, Cassandra Clare, Holly Black, all dropping stuff. When's V.E. Schwab's book coming out? I feel like it's going to be a good year. So next time I see you for this kind of content, it will probably be our mid-year freakout tag. So looking forward to that. Hopefully I will have more good news to report. Yeah, let me know your ranking. Let me know which books really exceeded your expectations, because I'm dying for some good fantasy here. And I'm really scared to start Robin Hobb. And I know I should. But it's just such a commitment. When people like hold up their piles of the Robin Hobb books, it terrifies me. So convince me to get over my fear. I don't know. But yeah, I will see you guys next week, hopefully. Hope you're all doing well. Hope for all of the fantasy readers, we get a good reading year, because it's been rough out here. And I will see you when I see you. Okay? Talk to you later. Bye.